everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Talking Terror. As always, I'm your host, Jacob Harper. It's a pleasure to be doing another episode. I do apologize for the gap between this episode and the Olga Turka episode back in February. I had planned on doing an episode in March to kind of follow up with the Oscars, but unfortunately, the guest I was going to have on for that episode, our plans that we had scheduled for kind of fell through, and we haven't really gotten a chance to reschedule anything yet. I do hope to get that guest back on in the future. They're a really cool guest, and they just seem like they'd be fun to nerd out with. So hopefully we can get them on a future episode. In the meantime, though, you can still catch up on everything I'm doing in between Talking Terror episodes by following my social media accounts. I am mostly active on Twitter and Instagram, but I'm trying to be more active on my TikTok and Blue Sky as well. I'll be leaving a link to all my social media accounts in the description below, including my link tree for convenience. That all my stuff is linked there on my link tree, so be sure to check that out. If you're listening to this on YouTube, be sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel. If you're tuning in on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, be sure to share the episode and leave a good rating. I really do appreciate that. And so let's just get into it. This episode was a lot of fun to do. I got to sit down and chat with James Preston Poole, a film critic who I have the pleasure of being friends with. We actually hung out a little bit at Fantastic Fest last year. He's a really cool guy. Anyway, last month, James was at CinemaCon. For those unaware, CinemaCon is a conference event where the biggest studios kind of go and showcase what they have cooking for the next year or so. And there was so much juicy stuff that came out of it, even outside the horror realm, where if James and I were talking solely just about everything at CinemaCon, we would have been here all day. Luckily, though, there was still enough horror news, more than enough, really, for us to sink our teeth into in this episode. So, without further ado, here is James and I talking about the horror films that were talked about at the 2025 CinemaCon. Hope you guys enjoy. Thanks so much.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Talking Terror. As always, I am your host, Jacob Harper, and today I'm joined by James Preston Poole.
Howdy, nice to be here.
Hell yeah, thanks for coming on. Now, James is an entertainment journalist and critic with bylines in Cosmic Circus and Discussing Film. How are you doing today?
Doing very well, doing very well. It's a great time to be a movie fan. What with the huge push that Sinners had in its second weekend, and especially a great time to be a horror fan. So it seems like it is the right time to talk some terror, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I had in my notes, 2025 has already been a great year for horror. We
Hmm.
started strong with oh, my light went out. We started strong with Companion, followed by The Monkey shortly after, and to more recently Sinners, like you said, still going strong on its second weekend, which it didn't have much of a drop from what I read, if any. I don't think I really had any drop on its second weekend, which is really, really cool. I mean, usually a lot of movies kind of drop off that second weekend, but it's still going strong. And we also had The Ugly Stepsister, which had a
Hmm.
limited release, and it's coming to Shudder next month. So it's going good here in 2025, and with everything coming out of CinemaCon, it's only just beginning, really.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I'll tell you what. From being at CinemaCon 2025, never before did CinemaCon have horror fans been this well served, and it's rare that the slate for big major studio horror looks this great.
Oh yeah, I was compiling my notes last night and looking at everything that was announced because I caught a lot of what was announced, but I looked deeper and I was like, dude, it's insane how big the slate was for horror for
Hmm.
CinemaCon over the next year or so. Um, and I have a confession to make, everybody. This is actually not an episode of Talking Terror. I'm living through James because I'm jealous he went to CinemaCon, and that's what all this is a ruse, so I could learn about CinemaCon from James because he was there, he saw the action firsthand, and we're getting the firsthand account. of it
I
all.
knew this was a trick. I knew this was a trick.
Yeah, I no, I had to get the scoop firsthand, and I had to disguise it as a podcast episode so I didn't look like a crazy person. So thank you for falling into my trap. I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. What do you want to know first?
So I'm gonna go down the line of all the different studios that had their slates.
Hmm.
I want to start with Universal. So U
Okay.
Universal came out swinging with a lot of the big ones that I'm super excited to talk about. Justin Tipping and Jordan Peele teaming up to do him. Megan 2.0, Five Nights at Freddy's
Hmm.
2, which anyone who knows me knows I was a total fanboy for Five Nights at Freddy's 1, so that was a big one. Black Phone 2 and Soulmate, which a lot of people kind of flying under the radar, so I'm excited to get into
Hmm.
all those. Let's start with him. I saw the
Yeah.
teaser trailer when it hit theaters. I try to avoid trailers nowadays because a lot of them are too spoilery, but I saw that one in theaters and it looks interesting. Marlon Wayans, Jordan Peele producing. So what all did they go into on that at CinemaCon?
Yeah, so the trailer that's been released now is for all intents and purposes what they showed at CinemaCon. Um, but that being said, there's still a lot to discuss there, right? Like
Mhm.
on paper, him seems very much like it would be sort of a sports riff on Whiplash with, the overzealous trainer kind of exploiting the new hot young athlete. But what I got from the trailer was something entirely different. I got more of an occult vibe to the proceedings, and especially with a title that has the capital H, him, you have to kind of wonder if there's going to be some kind of off the rails religious elements to it. And I don't know. I'm consistently from what I've seen from even before we had a trailer, just the casting of Marlon Wayans in a horror role is so provocative and so interesting that it feels like every little brick they're adding onto this big him wall just gets me more and more excited. I don't know. What did you think of the trailer, Jacob?
So I like that I didn't show too much. That was first and foremost because I like how it's keeping it kind of ambiguous. I love the casting of Marlon Wayans. And
Hmm.
what really caught my eye, and this is before we even saw the trailer, was the poster. It's the
Hmm.
the display case with the football, but like the stitches are like staples, kind of holding it together, and it
Yes.
has a kind of an off-putting look to the football. Um, and I it's really interesting that you bring up the religious connotations in the title of him, because I actually hadn't really thought of that. Like, so do you think the title being him points to the subject of Marlon Wayans or Marlon Wayans himself being him?
I think it almost refers to the subject of, Marlon Wayans' extreme, um, pressure being a trainer. And I feel like our protagonist for this film, it could almost be being turned into some kind of a deity figure, or perhaps metaphorically being put up on a pedestal, like, a god. Of course, there's, like you said, mercifully, they haven't given us much details about what the actual plot's going to entail. So right now, it's just picking up crumbs and letting our mind run wild. But I can definitely see more discussion happening in the coming weeks, and I hope that they keep this marketing as vague as it is, because what right now they're just selling a tone, and that tone is already enticing enough that I know it will get the big horror heads, and of course, fans of films that Jordan Peele directed and produced. Although, let it be known, this is a Justin Tipping film.
Oh
This is
yeah.
not a Jordan Peele written or directed film. He's just simply helping elevate another great talent. But a lot of these monkey paw films have a great sense of mystery to them where we really don't know what truly the concept of the film is going to be till we sit down. So I think him fits nicely into that of why.
Oh yeah, and I'm glad you pointed that out because one of my little pet peeves in in this kind of industry is when people say like Jordan Peele's Candyman, for example.
Yes.
It's Nia DaCosta's Candyman. Jordan Peele just like you said, elevated a really great underrated writer director. You know, Nia DaCosta and now Justin Tipping. It's almost on the same level as when people say like Tim Burton directed Coraline or
Right.
or Nightmare Before Christmas. No, put some respect on Henry Selick.
For
So
real.
when is him? I thought I had this on my notes, but I don't because I'm unprepared. When is him scheduled to come out? That's 2025, right?
Yes, so that will be this year. And the exact release date is going to be September 19th, 2025. So kind of right before the Halloween season, we're rolling
Mhm.
into it. So yeah, I'm excited for this one. I'm really, really excited for this one. It feels like it's been a while since we got something out of Monkey Paw.
Oh yeah, no, I love Monkey Paw, and I'm excited to see like kind of the sports culture being given a cult like kind of riff, you know.
Yes,
You
definitely.
you don't see a lot of kind of the. I mean, we always see meshings of the genre, especially now in horror. Like you have a lot of genre meshing, like Freaky, Freaky Friday and a
Hmm.
slasher movie, stuff like that. But seeing a sports movie kind of get harshly collided with very dark, culty horror themes is something I don't think we've ever really seen before. So I'm excited to see where that goes and how audiences take to it. I'm gonna be seated day one. It looks really exciting.
Same, same.
And the only unfortunate thing about it coming out in September is we won't get a really funny Super Bowl ad for him. I feel like that would kind of flow perfectly, but that's okay. Maybe next time.
Maybe it's a hit. Maybe we get him too, and that opportunity comes by.
I hope so, yeah. So next up on the slate was Megan 2.0. Now, admittedly, I haven't seen the trailer. I've been trying to keep out of
Mhm.
the spoiler territory, but Megan 2.0, from what I've seen, is kind of going in the Terminator 2 route a little bit, where,
Yes, that's exactly what I was gonna say. I mean, by this point, you know if Megan is something that you like. You know if that
yeah.
super tongue-in-cheek, over-the-top comedy of it all plays for you, and it looks like Megan 2.0 is just going to be that juiced up. Like there's even a scene in the trailer where she's wearing this ridiculous flying squirrel like wingsuit. So they're going blockbuster with this one.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and like the first Megan was a huge success. I always like to
Hmm.
say Megan, among other films, Megan kind of disproves the January horror release boogeyman that a lot of people kind of talk about.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, like I think Megan. I mean, I have the poster. I
Oh
used,
yeah.
yeah, no, Megan's great. I love Megan, kind of modern horror icon.
Hmm.
She's great. So I'm excited to see where Megan 2.0 goes. If it'll be more violent, I don't know, because the first one kind of, it was released PG-13, had an, I think, unrated cut or maybe rated R cut on the Blu-ray.
It did have an unrated cut, but I would say that mostly just kind of put in a little more F-bombs here and there. There
Yeah.
was nothing too crazy. I mean, for at the end of the day, I think Megan was very much, a PG-13 kind of entry level at a certain point horror. And I think Megan 2.0 is kind of going for the big PG-13 blockbuster kind of vibe. And
Mhm.
even though it is still technically in the horror genre, I feel like this is kind of going in the steps of Chucky a little bit, where it can truly be anything, and fun is kind of the number one thing here.
Oh yeah. No, like Chucky, he's a very versatile character. You can put him anywhere. I'm still waiting for Chucky in space if Don Mancini wants to get on that. But other than that, I mean Chucky, you can put him anywhere. And I think I agree. Megan's probably going down the same path because she is inherently
Yeah,
a very versatile character. So
definitely.
I think it'd be interesting to see how they're taking it. They're taking it more of an action movie approach, which
Hmm.
I mean I think kind of fits a character like Megan very well. Especially after one scene in Megan, well, really all of her fight scenes in the first one, where she's like running through the woods on like all fours, or
Yeah,
when she like hangs that guy by that electrical rope in the workshop scene.
and of course the iconic dance through the hallway where she
Yeah.
rips off the paper cutter and dispatches a hallway full of guys.
It's Megan's so cool. That's such a cool movie. I'm
It's
excited for
it's
Megan
so
too.
it's so great. I mean, like I said, you know if Megan is your sort of thing, but I'm very much in the camp that Megan rocks, and I'll watch a million of these.
Oh
Which,
yeah.
speaking of, I'm surprised they still haven't released the trailer for Soulmates, which we also saw at CinemaCon. Now, have you heard a lot about this one yet?
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, I've heard a little bit about it,
Hmm.
but it's kind of flying under the radar. So if you want to give like a sort of like basic synopsis of what Soulmate is, because I don't think a lot of people know that Soulmate is a spin-off of Megan. It's in the same universe. It's
Yeah,
in that same kind of vein, but I don't think a lot of people really know about that.
yeah. So Soulmate, from the footage we saw, it stars Lily Sullivan from Evil Dead Rise as a you know, essentially, let's just call it what it is. It's a companion robot, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
But the difference with this plot is that unlike in Companion, where it's, someone realizing their autonomy and trying to get away from the controlling man, in this film, Lily Sullivan's character is completely aware of what she is, and she is obsessed with the man who essentially controls her. And she is trying to prevent him from finding love elsewhere. So this looks it from what I saw, it is a different vibe from Megan. It's very R-rated.
Mhm.
It's very much kind of like an erotic thriller mixed with horror. The audience was sort of cold on this trailer, but I thought it was a lot of fun. Just because I like that vibe. It's kind of going for that trashy '90s like killer woman
Mhm.
obsession kind of thing. I think the closest comparable would probably be this is like Fatal Attraction but with robots.
Gotcha.
And do I think it's going to make as much as Megan when it comes out in January 2026? Probably not, but I do think there will be an audience for it, and it would
Mhm.
be kind of fun to see, the Megan universe grow to a robot battle royale or something like that.
Oh yeah, I mean the premise sounds, and when I reread the premise last night, it did. I was like, okay, so it is like a role reversed companion, which we just had
Yes.
this year, and I'm curious if how good or bad Companion did, depending on how you look at the numbers, if that'll
Hmm.
influence anything about Soulmate, whether it be on audiences or producers, if they're going to change some things before
Right.
it's released next year. But I do agree, it's going to be cool to see the Megan universe grow, and I kind of hope they're leading to a fight between Megan and the Soulmate robot.
Definitely.
That'd be kind of cool, kind of have like a Freddy versus Jason type thing.
We need it. The audience's hunger for versus
We
movies.
do. I'm pretty sure I put out a tweet where I was like, We need more versus movies.
Yes.
Like, give me Megan versus Chucky. Give me Jason versus Michael Myers. Give me something. I don't know. Like,
Anything. Even, I mean, that's where the I guess you would call it the scary fairy tale universe or the
hmm.
Pooniverse, but they are going for that. And I think that is a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. Now, I still need to watch the second Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey.
Hmm.
Um, the first one was fun. I watched it on it had like a one night theater thing,
Hmm.
and I caught it. It was fun.
I haven't done the deep dive into that universe yet, but I do like the idea. I think it's
Mhm.
fun. I think especially if things are public domain, you might as well do some horror with it.
Oh yeah. Did you total side tangent? Did you see Screamboat?
I did not. I love David Howard Thornton though, so it is on my list. Would you recommend it?
Oh yeah, it was actually really fun.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I will be checking that out as soon as I can.
Oh yeah, I mean, like one of my biggest gripes with the kind of public domain horror movie trend is how
Hmm.
they try to turn every character into like Jason Voorhees, but with a different costume. And
Right.
Screamboat kind of doesn't. It makes Steamboat Willie as a slasher his own thing,
Hmm.
and like kind of uses that character to its own like kind of unique look and kind of performance. So I'd highly recommend it. It was a
I
fun
love
one.
that.
Yeah.
All right, Screamboat. It's on top of my list now.
Hell yeah. Um, all right, so next up. These next two are going to be probably the biggest ones of the slate.
Hmm.
Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Now, I know I've already said twice, I try to stay away from trailers until I see them in the theater because then it's inevitable. But Five Nights at
Hmm.
Freddy's 2, when I heard the trailer dropped, I sped home and I watched it. Uh, that's the exception to the rule. Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I loved the first Five Nights at Freddy's. I know a lot of people had issues with how like PG-13 or kind of like clean it was to an extent.
Hmm.
Which I mean, I feel like that was to be expected for anyone kind of realistically looking at how the studio was handling it, how the games kind of were, who the target audience was. But
Right.
I'm hearing that Five Nights at Freddy's 2 does take things up a few notches. And I think the teaser trailer kind of reflects that quite a bit.
Yeah, so I'm a bit of a guest in this house when it comes to Five Nights at Freddy's. I'm not a big Five Nights at Freddy's lore head. I haven't done
Mm,
those huge deep dives yet. But I will say, after initially not vibing with that first movie, going back and kind of going on a wiki deep dive afterwards and realizing how much of the lore they had incorporated and how deep the rabbit hole goes,
mm,
I am very intrigued by how this franchise will develop. I mean, there's certainly the audience for it, right? I mean, at the time when that first FNAF came out, I was a substitute teacher, and the students would not stop talking about it. It was full on debates on whether or not the movie handled this lore correctly, where it could set up, where it could go to. So, while I don't have much to comment on in terms of this teaser trailer, it's got me excited.
mhm.
I'm in. I'm in. I'll say that much.
And from what I remember, Jason Blum himself came out in the Toy Freddy outfit, which I thought was great.
Yes.
I saw those pictures. I was like, man, I love Jason. He does the most, and he's always behind his projects, which I love.
He's a hell of a showman, and he also emphasized that this is not going day and date on Peacock. This is going fully theatrical, which the first movie should have done,
Mhm.
but now we're gonna get the box office that that first one should have gotten.
Oh yeah. No, I feel like day and date releases are one of the biggest problems, like contributing to the problem of the theater issue.
Oh yeah.
So I'm glad they're staying away from that going forward with Fights of Phrase 2. Because I
Hmm.
agree, Fights of Phrase should have gotten that bigger box office. It did really well. It
It
did
did,
great at the box office. It could have done
especially
greater if you
for
didn't put it on Peacock.
especially for day and date. It's
Mhm.
impressive that it even still placed. It got number one that weekend, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I mean, to even get number one domestic when you have a day and date release is kind of in a way very impressive. So I I would be if I were a box office analyst, I would be adjusting those expectations for the second one.
Oh yeah, and again, it looks more intense than the first one.
Yes.
I think they're really trying to reconcile that kind of issue that some people had about it being too tame or too held back.
Hmm.
Which I mean, I understand why they held back. It's the first movie
Hmm.
video game adaptation of like a popular game, mostly aimed at a younger audience. So I completely understand from a producing perspective why they didn't go all in on the violence that the original games had. But now that the waters have been tested and the results are a good box office, I think they're willing to go a little bit deeper on it, which I'm super excited about.
Definitely. And we do see this with a lot of adaptations nowadays. I mean, I think my best example would be like in the Sonic movies, for
Hmm.
example. The first movie was, it had the iconography in there, but it was really just like, all right, we're gonna make a pretty standard children's film, but with Sonic in there. And
Hmm.
then that made a lot of money, so they were able to incorporate more of what people loved in the second one. So I feel like we could be in a similar situation here with FNAF 2.
Oh yeah, and speaking of Sonic, I do think the Sonic movies have been the revival for video game movies, but this time we're doing
Yes.
them good. We're doing them well.
Definitely.
This time around. So I'm excited for Final Fantasy 2. That's in theaters this December.
Hmm.
So kind of close to a Christmas release. Big time for movies, so hopefully it could compete with whatever else is coming out this winter.
Yes.
Which again, it's a busy season, so I'm expecting it to have some competition, but I bet it'll be able to hold its own at the box
Oh
office.
yeah.
Now, following that is another heavy hitter, which is one I'll admit I was a little reserved on when I first heard they were doing this. But hearing everything that's come out of it and hearing what I believe you put out a tweet about it, hearing what you had to say about it, it got me really
Yes.
excited. The Black Phone 2.
So the Black Phone, in my opinion, for a film that's already acclaimed, already made a bunch of money, I feel like it's still very underrated. And
Oh yeah.
I think it's probably the strongest directorial work that Scott Derrickson has done. Um, so the concept for Black Phone 2 from the trailer, which I'm surprised they haven't released anything yet because what they showed us is so good that it would get people super excited. But the concept is the kids from the last film, the surviving kids, are at some sort of summer camp and a phone starts ringing. Who's on the other side but the spirit of the grabber from the first film?
Mhm.
Um, Beyond that, the trailer doesn't give us a whole lot of plot details, but does show us a lot of really horrifying imagery. The film has kind of a snowy aesthetic that feels like kind of a frosted Friday the 13th, Camp Crystal Lake.
Mhm.
But you throw in the grabber as Freddy Krueger, and there's also a lot of lo-fi 70s shot kind of footage like we saw in the first film. But some of the images that go by just in that quick succession are nightmare fuel. One that I keep thinking of is the grabber is skating on the ice holding an axe in slow motion. It feels like boom, there's your iconic horror moment right there. But also, he seems to have the ability, much like Freddy Krueger, to harm people from the other side. There's a particular sequence where you see someone spinning around in a phone booth, and blood is just flowing everywhere. Um, and overall, this footage, right, is a version of the Alice in Chains song Rooster, that really sells the kind of mean, gnarly, grungier vibe that we're going from the first movie, which is already pretty intense for a
Mhm.
big studio horror. So I think they're nailing it. I think Derrickson and Cargill are exactly right when they said they had a concept for this. And I think those who are skeptical, once that footage drops, we're not going to be hearing that talk anymore.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And like, okay. So first off, I agree with everything you said about the Black Phone. For
Hmm.
all its accolades and all its appraisal, it is underrated. It's probably my favorite Blumhouse film, like in their
Yes.
like producing slate. And you know, as much as I love Sinister, I do think it is Scott Derrickson and Cargill's best collaborative work.
Hmm.
I love the Black Phone, and that's why I was so apprehensive of a sequel. Because, like, for me, when a movie sticks to landing as well as Black Phone did, I
Yes.
kind of wanted to leave it as is. I'm okay, just frame it, put it on the wall, be done with it. We could look at that forever and be happy with it. And then I heard they were
Hmm.
doing Black Phone too, and I was like, oh, it's based off a short story. How they're gonna do it. Then I was reading how they had the concept, they brought it to Joe Chill, his he wrote the short story if I remember correctly.
Yes.
They brought it to him and said, "Hey, we have this concept. We think this will work really well." And he really loved it, which is when I was starting to think, okay, now I think we're cooking. When I mean,
Hmm.
I know Scott Derrickson and Carter will cook up anything; they're great. But when you have
Hmm.
the original writer being like, "Yeah, this is where the story would go," and I like this, that's when I'm on board with doing sequels to adaptations that didn't get sequels. And then after everything came out about what footage was shown, I'm sold. I'm seated. You know, the idea of taking the grabber and bringing him to a Freddy Krueger type of level is great. And based on the imagery that you described and everything I've been reading, that is what he is Freddy Krueger
Yes.
The skating on the ice is very Freddy Krueger coded there.
Hmm.
And the way I didn't hear about the phone booth kill, by the way. So that has
Hmm.
me excited now. That phone booth kill, the way you described it, kind of brought me uh to how Johnny Depp's death in the original Nightmare on
Yes.
Elm Street, the bed with the upside flowing waterfall of blood.
Hmm.
Um,
They're
and that
definitely pushing into a more surreal place than the first film went to,
oh
which
yeah.
I think is smart, because
Mhm.
the whole concept of the first one was our protagonist being helped by spirits from beyond. And now we have a character. We have who do we have in the Beyond? But the one person that these kids wouldn't want helping them in any kind of way. So I think it's always a cool idea for a sequel to invert the concept
Mhm.
from the first one. I don't know if they can stretch this out to a Black Phone 3 or anything, but I feel like if this is a proper companion piece to the first one, then it'll be a great little duology.
You think we'll get like Black Phone 3, the Phone Warriors, or something
If
like
it's as
that?
good if it's as good as Dream Warriors, then I'm down.
Oh yeah, same. And I also like how this is, like you said, kind of having a Frosted Friday the 13th type of thing. It's finally
Hmm.
giving us that winter Friday the 13th that we always wanted.
Yes.
We almost got it with the remake. They almost did a sequel to the remake with that concept. So I'm glad we're finally getting it one way or another.
The fans long for Jason in the Mountains.
They do. They long for Jason running through blood-covered snow, killing people. We
Hmm.
we need that on the big screen, and they're about to give it to us through the Black Phone too, which I'm super excited about.
The horror gods work in mysterious ways.
Oh yes. Oh, thank God for Jason Blum and Scott Derrickson. Thank God for all of them. They're all great. Um, so moving on, because we did talk about Soulmate as well. So moving on to the next studio slate, Sony, which Sony I think it's gonna be kind of a quicker one because there's
Hmm.
not too much that they really showed as far as I recall for horror. The
Yeah. The first one I just want to kind of get out of the way real quick because we've already seen the trailer has just released. Um, for was 28 years later. I mean, it looks great. Danny Boyle and Alex Garland returning to the same well. It's going to be a good time. And then they brought out Nia DaCosta and gave us a little tease for the Bone Temple,
Mhm.
which we didn't get much from that other than some really cool looking concept art and also being told that the villain will be Ray Fiennes. So there we can expect a flowing arc between those two films. However, they did tell us that the third film has still not been greenlit yet, and that Danny Boyle is actively asking them to greenlight it. But they're waiting on the box office for 28 years later to come
Mhm.
in. But at the very least, both these are in the can. They're ready to go. I feel like enough has been said about the hype behind 28 years later. We're
Yeah.
all excited, and that's that.
Mhm. Which, 28 years later, that's another movie where I haven't seen the newest trailer. Not
Hmm.
for fear of spoilers, because I'm sure they do a good
Right.
job hiding things, but because that last trailer was so good, I kind of only want to remember it by that. The first
Hmm.
trailer with that war poem kind of chant,
Yes.
as sort of the soundtrack to the trailer it was so well done that I kind of just want to keep it at that and go see 28 years later. And
Exactly.
I do think 28 years later will make its box office.
Hmm.
Based on the hype, it's kind of a resurrected IP.
Yes.
Um, and Cillian Murphy's not back yet. But I think it's got a great cast. You have Aaron Taylor Johnson, leading the barrage here, and I think
Hmm.
I think it'll make its money. So I do think that we'll get that third movie greenlit in this trilogy. Um, from what I remember, I did hear that Cillian Murphy is expected to come back in one of them, Bone Temple, or
Dan
maybe the third one. Is that?
Danny Boyle essentially confirmed that he's going to be a presence throughout the trilogy, but he just said to be patient, to wait in
Hmm.
that first film.
Gotcha.
So I would kind of keep your expectations around, Luke Skywalker in Force Awakens level for that, I would think.
Gotcha. Yeah. Because what I thought was going to happen was I thought they were going to say like, "Hey, we're going to wait to see how good this does, and then we're going to greenlight it because the studio doesn't want to pay for Cillian Murphy yet." But hey, even if we get a little, I don't know, post-credit scene or pre-credit, ending scene, like you said, Luke Skywalker type of scene at the end of 28 years later, I'd be happy with that.
Oh yeah. Beyond all the crazy footage we saw from that, I am also just excited by the prospect that the infection hasn't occurred all around the globe and that it's kind of just sequestered right now to England and Europe, more specifically. So that'll be fun to see that. I feel like you don't see that a lot in I don't want to say zombies because the 28 years, 28 days, weeks, years creatures are very much their own different variation on the
Hmm.
classic zombie. But it's rare that we see a film where they are just sequestered to one area, and I think they're kind of building up a strange kind of Mad Max ramshackle society element to this, which I'm excited to see play out.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely a cool way to approach the subject matter. I mean, it's
Hmm.
it's like because like you said, you don't really see a lot where it's just stuck in one specific area. And it's kind of hard to
Of
fathom
course.
like, oh, this is an issue in one area, but the rest of the world is more or less doing okay.
Hmm.
With a lot of these kind of apocalyptic movies, it's kind of all or nothing, you know.
Yes.
Um, so it's kind of cool. It's like I imagine of like a quiet place, but it was only like, oh, it's only in this like a few states. It's whatever.
Hmm.
Um,
I'd clap.
yeah. So I'm excited for that. That's a cool way to kind of approach this movie. Um, we also got stuff from I Know What You Did Last Summer, which I
Hmm.
was just thinking I kind of forgot we were getting that reboot until I saw a poster
Yeah.
for it leaving my local cinema, and I was like, oh yeah, that's coming out. And then like a day later, we got a new trailer for it. Um,
So from this footage, I know what you just did last summer. It looks fun.
mhm.
However, it is very much just, by the Legacy sequel playbook. Like to the point where they have big like cheer and clap moments when you see Freddie Prinze Jr. in the trailer. When you see Jennifer Love Hewitt, she even has a line that's, something to the effect of what did you do last summer? Um, so it
Yeah.
seems like they're kind of playing the hits, but with a film like I Know You Did Last Summer, the original, where I don't feel like that has been revisited a lot in the past few years. I'm down. I'm down to essentially walk the same path again, but a little bit different. I think if any franchise has earned their legacy sequel, I Know What You Did Last Summer is, but I wouldn't expect anything from what I saw to break the mold. It's just going to be I Know What You Did Last Summer again.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, truth be told, I watched the first one for the first time in a long time. It was basically watching it again for the first time for me. I
Hmm.
haven't seen any of the sequels either, and I thought it was all right.
Hmm.
I don't think it's up there with like slasher classics per se.
Of course.
Um, but this reboot was kind of inevitable. We've kind of cycled through all the heavy hitters once or twice by now. So it's about time this one got its revisit. Uh,
For
it,
sure.
like you said they're kind of playing the hits and not really going through new waters here. But I think it'll be an all right fun summer matinee slasher flick.
Hmm.
Um,
And I feel like if any films like lend themselves to doing a legacy sequel and it not being really grating and transparent, I feel like it's slashers. I'm always down for a good slasher legacy sequel. Because
mhm,
so much of slashers is built on variations on a similar formula that I'm not like what they're just doing the same thing again. It's no, of course they are. I'm excited. I'll go see the new I Know What You Did Last
mhm.
Summer. It's not going to be top of my list, but I'll go see it.
So I'm curious, do you think they're going like full on like Halloween 2018 style where like the final girl from the first one is taking on a whole Jamie Lee Curtis badass survivor trauma character, or do you think
Uh,
we're steering away from that?
yes, I will say Jennifer Love Hewitt's character does not look as, like haggard and off in the woods survivalist like Jamie Lee Curtis was. I feel
Mhm.
like this is a little bit closer to maybe Scream 5, where uh, you know, where Sydney has her own life. She's moved on, but comes back for the greater good. So it seems like they're letting the characters maintain their like happy endings or having full lives. It's not that legacy sequel thing where the original films have basically stunted the growth of the protagonists.
Mhm.
It seems more like they've gotten to live their life and now they're just coming by to lend a helping hand.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good. I mean, I didn't like when they did that with Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
That was my biggest gripe with the Netflix Chainsaw Massacre. I was like, Sally Hardesty is not, which would not be a cop.
Yeah. No
She would
way.
she
No
would not
way.
grow up to be a hard ass sheriff. That just wouldn't happen. Uh,
I've been a fan of Fangoria for a long while. There really isn't much I could say that hasn't been said already, but I will never stop praising them. Each Fangoria issue is filled to the brim with insightful interviews, great editorials, and many more great bloody affairs. As some of y'all may know, I am a Fangoria affiliate, which means I have a discount code able to offer you guys 20% off an entire one-time subscription. Yeah, you can get your Fangorias from your local bookstore and newsstand, but by subscribing directly to Fangoria, you are able to get these exclusive subscriber only covers. This is from the latest Fangoria that was sent to me. It's got this lovely David Lynch tribute art here. And before that was this beautiful Nosferatu uh, subscriber exclusive cover. You can only get these covers if you're subscribed. I mean, yeah, the newsstand covers still look cool, but that's a whole nother ball game right there. If you're already subscribed to Fangoria, you could still use that 20% off discount code to get yourself something from the Fangoria merch shop. That way you could represent Fangoria by wearing some cool swag, maybe a hat, maybe a t-shirt, while still supporting this podcast. It's a win-win for everyone, really. It's a win for everyone. Once again, that discount code is Jacob the Harper, JACOBTHEHERPER. That's Jacob the Harper. I'll also be providing a link in the description for all that. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the interview.
Welcome back to Talking Terror. I am back with James Preston Poole, and we're doing more CinemaCon coverage. So, where we left off, we were talking about the Sony slate, and I would be remiss to forget one big thing that was announced. I don't, as far as I know, we didn't see any footage of it, or really much of anything, but Zach Krieger's Resident Evil was confirmed at CinemaCon.
Yes, yes, it was. It's not the last time we're going to be talking about Zach Krieger.
No.
But yeah, he basically walked out onto the stage, and there was very little he could give us at this point because I'm sure so much is under wraps.
Mhm.
Casting is still happening and whatnot. Fingers crossed for Sophie Thatcher as Jill Valentine. But what he did tell us is he described that what he wants to capture is that moment in the original games where you are just in a hallway, you have maybe one bullet left, and a zombie's coming at you. Your pulse is pounding, and you have to make a split-second decision. You have one chance. And that's the kind of in the moment terror that Zach Krieger wants to bring to the film. I do feel a little jostled around by the Resident Evil movie franchise at this
Mhm.
point. I am a big fan of the Paul W.S. Anderson films, but those are entirely their own different thing. Those are, post Matrix, very slick action movies. And, but then, they did Welcome to Raccoon City, which they had promised was going to be very, very close to the games. And in a sense, it was, but it wasn't necessarily in the right tone that we wanted. So I don't know. Is the third time going to be the charm? I trust Zach Krieger, but I know that Sony also has kind of a habit of meddling when it comes to this franchise in live action films.
Mhm.
Um, so it's a big wait and see, but with a little bit of cautious optimism. I think he has the right idea, and if anyone's going to get this done uninhibited by the studio pressures that be, it's going to be Zach Krieger.
I definitely agree with that last statement. I mean, like Zach Krieger, like from Barbarian to what little we know about weapons. He
Mm-hmm.
seems like a director and writer that knows how to keep a vision intact, like through it all,
Yes.
because like there's like Barbarian, that's a movie that has never left my mind since the day I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
I think Weapons is going to be the same, and with how ambiguous it is and how it's keeping away from standard marketing tactics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's good at keeping things first off under wraps, which this is what this
Yes.
seems to be, and he's good at keeping a vision. So
Definitely.
I agree with that sentiment that if anyone's going to get this job done properly, it will be Zach Krieger. But I also, I agree. Sony has had a history of meddling with this IP. So, and
Mm-hmm.
Resident Evil, it's such a interesting IP because I haven't played too many of the games.
Mm-hmm.
I'm no expert in this in this franchise by any means. But you know, from outside looking in, it doesn't seem crazy hard to adapt, at least the basics.
No, I
Um,
mean, all you really need to make a good Resident Evil movie is start it off like a typical zombie movie, and
mhm,
then slowly devolve into a big rabbit hole of corporate espionage and giant monsters, and you're cooking. And I think as long as they just follow the playbook set by either the first Resident Evil game, Resident Evil Zero,
mhm,
I think we're going to be in good hands, but I wouldn't stray too far from what the games have done. I don't think this is a situation like the like The Last of Us where the property originally is already so much a movie. I feel like with the Resident Evil games, there are already, the story is set, but it's not really portrayed very cinematically in the game. So I think
mhm.
just take that story, throw a cinematic sheen on it, and you're going to satisfy the people who have been waiting for a good Resident Evil movie.
Right. And that based on that description, that makes me even more excited for Krieger's adaptation because he is so good at starting somewhere and ending in a totally different place. I mean, again,
Hmm.
just look at Barbarian. Based on everything we
Yes.
saw in the trailers, everything we expected going into it. I don't know about you, but going into it,
Yeah.
expecting one thing, and then we ended on a different planet, basically, than what
Yes.
we started in. So based on that description, Krieger seems to fit the bill for Resident Evil. He knows rabbit holes. Barbarian is a rabbit hole
Hmm.
in and of itself.
From what I'm hearing from people within the industry, weapons is a series of rabbit holes.
Oh yeah, and when I woke up today and saw that we got a new weapons trailer, I was like, "Well, this is
Hmm.
gonna be even more fodder for the podcast." So
Yes.
that's interesting. I haven't watched it yet, but on the marketing for weapons, um,
Hmm.
which I think we're gonna talk more about it when I get to the Warner Brothers slate. But based on how
Yes.
little I have seen of it and how little I want to see of it, I'm hooked.
Yeah, they're playing that entirely right, and I will have a
Mhm.
lot more to say when we get to weapons.
Oh yeah, and I hope Zach Krieger through his because he's gonna have a great career in in this industry. I mean, he already has. I think he's gonna continue to make even
Oh yeah.
bigger and just bigger movies. I do hope he keeps that trend of under wraps. No one knows anything until the film starts. Type
Yes.
of mentality throughout his career. I really hope he keeps that, and he seems to be doing that.
It's rare to not only be able to keep it under wraps till opening weekend, but it's also even more rare to have people that are as fiercely protective of the secrets of the movie once they come out. Because Barbarian, I mean, it wasn't till home video that I saw people truly being like, okay, now we can discuss
Mhm.
blank, you know?
Oh yeah. And the closest I've gotten to that sort of thing besides Barbarian was stuff with like Long Legs. Last year
Yes.
when Long Legs came out, everyone was like, "What is this movie about?" And then even like through opening weekend, everyone was like, "Don't say what Nicolas Cage looks like. I don't. No one posts anything about what he looks like
Yep.
in this movie." And you saw a similar thing with Count Orlok and Nosferatu. Um, and I love that when everyone is involved in keeping it a secret and everyone's kind of playing the
Yes.
game. it really builds a sense of unity in the industry and community, which I love. And
Definitely.
I think Weapons is gonna keep that going this year.
And I think it just brings such a intrigue for audience members too. Like nothing gets you hooked like a big mystery and a big like I gotta figure out what this is all about.
Oh yeah, no, it's so good. It's such a great feeling, and I mean, Weapons is Long Legs did that a lot for the horror community. I think Weapons is going to continue to do that. Um,
100%.
so moving on to the Paramount slate. Paramount, kind of a shockingly small slate for horror. I mean, I don't know if
Yeah.
shockingly is the right word, but it was. And I even took some liberties putting Running Man in here because based on
Yes.
King so Running Man. I don't know much about that. Tell me a
hmm
little bit about that.
So The Running Man is actually one of my favorite Stephen King novels.
Mhm.
It was done under the Richard Bachman alias, which of course, lets it be a little more gnarly than some of Stephen King's, a little more dark-hearted than some of Stephen King's already pretty macabre material.
Right.
Um, so The Running Man, the novel is kind of it's a very dark cyberpunk dystopian sort of narrative where essentially a man who's like is not able to feed his wife or his kids signs up for a game show where he's essentially just going to be hunted for a
Mhm.
for a matter of days. Everyone is trying to kill him. And where that goes in the book is, somewhere very dark and depressing with a lot of social commentary in there. The Running Man, the film, as done by Edgar Wright, it looks like an Edgar Wright movie, which means
Yeah.
it's going to be a big action comedy. Now, it looks impressive. There's a lot of verve to the cinematography. Glenn Powell is clearly having fun. You have Michael Cera in what looks like a really fun supporting role.
Mhm.
But I can't help but be disappointed because this is not the book, and we've already had another film adaptation that is with Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the '80s that didn't really follow that vibe of the book as well. So, am I happy to see a new Edgar Wright movie? Yes, but as a horror fan and as a fan of the novel, it feels like a big missed opportunity. And especially, not to be too over dramatic, but they came out on the stage and were talking about getting closer to the heart of the source material, and I just saw none of that in the trailer. I think a lot of people are going to love this trailer, and more power to them. But for me, it's just another case of okay, I guess we're gonna wait for the next go around to get this done right.
Right. So from what I'm getting, it kind of instead of having the kind of dark macabre, at least the kind of cyberpunk macabre
hmm
feelings to it, it's more just Edgar Wright having fun with the idea, with the premise, and kind of taking it in his
Yeah.
own. Yeah, I can see how that could be disappointing. I haven't read The Running Man yet, but based on how you described it, it sounds, because I love the most dangerous game type of
hmm
concepts, man hunting man type of stuff. Um, and this sounds like a cool redux of that, the novel. And
Yes.
like you said, Edgar Wright. I'm always going to be suited for Edgar Wright.
hmm
Great director. He knows what he's doing, obviously. But I can see how that could be disappointing to horror fans and people who just wanted the more darker edge of the book.
Yes.
Um,
And I feel like we all have those horror novels or horror properties that we're all pretty fiercely protective of, and this novel is that for me. And I don't know. I wish them the best. I think it's going to be a fantastic film, but I don't know, man. It feels like do we have to get Mike Flanagan in here to to do King right?
Please, and not it wasn't announced at CinemaCon, but Mike Flanagan he's readapting a Carrie into a
Yes.
television series, and I see a lot of people are like, "Oh, do we really need a third, a fourth Carrie remake, depending on what you consider a Carrie remake? Do we really need that?" And my response to that is usually, Mike Flanagan can do whatever he wants, and I will be
Yes.
sat for it. I don't care. He can do it whatever he wants, and I'm excited for it.
Definitely. Like, do we need another Carrie? No. Do we need another Mike Flanagan project? Yes.
Yes, we do. Do we need another Mike Flanagan King project? We need two. We
Yes.
We need Life with Chuck and we need Carrie stat.
Yes.
So I'm excited for that.
Hoping that the Dark Tower makes it a third soon.
Oh,
We're all waiting for that announcement.
and I'm hoping because I believe he has a new deal with Amazon Prime Studios,
Hmm.
sort of swapping out for what was previously his Netflix deal. And I hope this time around Amazon Prime lets him release his movies and series on home video. Please. Oh
Yes.
my God. My life would be complete if I had a Midnight Mass Blu-ray.
Oh,
Everything on my life would be fixed if I had Midnight Mass, Fall of the House of Usher on Blu-ray.
if I had followed the House of Usher, I would just rewatch that first episode over and over again.
So
It's
good.
such a
It's so
masterclass.
good. I've watched Fall of the House of Usher like 5 times. It's my favorite, one of my favorite Netflix series ever.
Oh, I don't blame you. It is everything that Flanagan does well, but amped up to 11.
Oh my God. No, he's the good. Mike Flanagan, please come on my podcast so I can nerd out about this.
Please, Mike Flanagan, come on Talking Terror.
Thank you. Thank you for advocating. So the only other thing I really had noted for the Paramount slate was Scream 7 got a new logo. No footage shown. I believe it's still in the process of shooting, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
so we really didn't get anything from Scream 7. We didn't
No.
get any talent up there, nothing like that. I mean, for reasons that will be obvious to anyone who's been on the internet in the past year, this is a very controversial film.
Yeah.
So I think that Paramount is smartly kind of trying to keep this close to the chest for as long as possible because to win back a lot of the fan base that has, not to get too much into this, but has rightfully walked away from the franchise.
Yeah.
They will really need to put their best foot forward on this one. Um, I mean,
Yeah.
Scream 7 to get everyone unanimous on this, it has to be nothing less than a immaculate film, and I do not envy the position they're in. But the logo looked like Scream with a 7 by
Yeah.
it.
I mean, I saw the new logo and I was like, it's not new. That's
No.
that's just okay. But I put it in the notes, and yeah, I debated putting this in the episode,
Hmm.
because and again, anyone who's been around the block for a while, the controversy. I'm not gonna get too deep
Hmm.
into it. I will say, based on where Scream 7 is going, where I think it's going story wise, and just as a film, my hopes are a little low compared to
Yeah,
previous installments. I mean, like bringing back so many people from the dead. I don't know. The whole thing just kind of screams desperation to me, especially when like
it does.
I've been so proud of Scream, and to an extent, even like franchises like Scream and Chucky that have
Hmm.
never hit the restart button in its entirety,
Yes.
like who have always been stood by their dirty laundry and their kind of less than favorable moments.
Hmm.
Scream. I don't think Scream has yet to have a bad movie, but Chucky.
Hmm.
Depending on who you ask, Chucky's had some interesting takes. I love Bride of Chucky. I love Seed of Chucky. Not everyone
Same.
does. But through it all, Don Mancini and the Chucky franchise have always stood by their work. They've never hit the reset button. They let the remake kind of die on the vine at the box
Yes.
office. And they kind of ignored it and kept pushing on with their continuity, which you never really see happen. Like two franchises kind of running parallel like
Hmm.
that. Um, so I've always been happy with Scream 7 being the same way as Chucky, where it's like we're not shying
Yeah.
away, we're not hitting the restart button, everything is canon, we're all still on the same page. And based on where they're going with it, I think they're going to stray off that path, which I'm not too happy about, as
It's
a lifelong fan.
I'm getting some Rise of Skywalker vibes in this one, where it just kind of seems like an opportunity to walk back a lot of stuff. So I actually I wasn't super keen on Scream 5, but I loved Scream 6. I loved what Radio Silence did there. I think that they found a reason to keep going. They found their commentary, sort of by lampooning how these franchises will get ridiculous, bring back legacy characters, and just keep going to such a absurd degree. And I really wanted to see Scream 7 kind of cap off the story of Jenna Ortega and Melissa Barrera's characters.
Hmm.
And I don't know. I think there's no way that they're not going to be missed in Scream 7 to a big degree. And
Yeah.
that hurts to say because a new Kevin Williamson Scream should be something to celebrate, but just the path that we've taken to get here and everything I'm hearing, I'm
Yeah,
I might be out.
yeah, it's so disappointing. 'Cause I've been a fan of this franchise since I saw the very first one at a very young age.
Hmm.
And just to see, like you said, a Kevin Williamson written Scream movie should be, a big deal, but just
Hmm.
the way they've gone about it, all the horrific PR they've had over the
Yes, to
last two
say the least.
years. Yeah, and that's me being generous and kind of
Hmm.
holding my tongue a little bit.
Being
Um,
merciful, even.
yeah. And I really liked Scream 5. I loved Scream 6. Scream 6 has, in my opinion, a few issues, but nothing that
Hmm.
isn't like that I can't overlook to see the beauty
Of
in Scream
course.
6. And just have to walk all that back, and I guess it feels like even though done a horrible job doing it, I feel like they're playing it too safe.
Yeah,
They're like, no, no,
I
no,
agree.
Matthew Lillard's back, David Arquette's back. It's okay. You don't have to be sad that Dewey is dead. It's like, well, no, you should be.
You should
You
have
sh
just let that
you should be. Like, it's okay. Like legacy characters dying. I like when that happens.
Hmm.
It sounds messed up to say, but I like when they have the balls to do it. And I kind of wish
Exactly.
they did more of that in the Radio Silence duology. And it sucks that they're kind of trying to walk it back.
Hmm.
I don't know. That's my Scream 7 rant.
No, I
Yeah.
fully agree. I
Without holding
mean,
my
you
going too deep.
we've definitely in person gone over the whole conundrum of Scream 7, and all I can say is best of luck, Paramount.
Yeah, they're really gonna need it on this go around.
Yeah.
So the next studio slate, getting away from Scream 7. On the next studio slate.
Run.
Yeah, we're gonna just slide past that. Next studio slate, Lionsgate. Again, kind of short. Not too much to really talk about. Not too much good for me to really say. On my end, at least. You might have a different
Yeah.
opinion. They talked about The Strangers Chapter 2. Anyone who has read a few of my articles or kept up on my socials know I was less than happy with The Strangers Chapter 1. And yeah, that's just me because like you said, everyone has that horror IP that they're so protective of, and it's their
Yeah.
baby. They love it. And for me, among other movies, The Strangers is one of those. The Strangers from
Oh, yeah.
2008 is one of the few movies that still scares me. It's a 5-star, can do no wrong horror film. And somehow The Strangers Prey at Night in 2018 is another 5-star movie that I love, but for two different
Yes.
reasons. Like Strangers Pray at Night are both 5 stars for me for totally opposite reasons.
Hmm.
Both opposite ends of the spectrum, but I love both of them. So when I heard they're doing a Strangers trilogy reboot, I was excited, cautiously optimistic, but excited to get more Strangers content. And chapter one, I just couldn't handle it. It just, I don't know. It fell so flat for me. I don't know if you have the same opinion or
It was just kind of a nothing movie, you know? Like I couldn't even find myself like getting mad at it just because it's like it's nothing. There's nothing going on there. Um, yeah, I fully agree with you on the previous Strangers films. I think that Strangers Prey at Night essentially being its completely own thing, other than bringing back, the titular characters of the Strangers.
Mhm.
I think that was a wonderful thing to do, and I kind of would have just rather them kept going with with kind of making this an anthology of sorts, where each movie is the Strangers in a different era. Um, Now, I will say that the concept of a trilogy is just so ambitious that I'm in for wherever this goes.
Mhm.
And but I think that it all comes down to Rennie Harlan, who's made some great movies like Cliffhanger and Nightmare on Elm Street 4. He's just lost the juice. He hasn't made a great movie in like decades at this point. He's
Mhm.
kind of just the guy you come in to make schlock on the cheap, and that sucks. But it's just the reality we're in, and I don't think I can see him pulling out all the stops to make Strangers 2 and three anything super noteworthy,
Mhm.
but I'm interested to see. I want this franchise to be a big marquee franchise so bad that I'm still holding out hope that there will be some sort of freshness to these next two. Now that we've
Absolutely.
gotten the rehash of the first movie out the way.
Yeah, and I'm so conflicted on the prospect of what the trilogy originally kind of brought for me because
Hmm.
like you said, on paper, a Strangers trilogy was ambitious, and the way
Hmm.
they wanted to do it, where it's all shot back to back to back, and I think the original release slate was they were going to be released back to back to back, like one
Yeah,
month. It would be kind of a Fear Street type of thing,
definitely.
which is again ambitious and cool. But just like the way they kind of just half-assed the beat sheet of the original Strangers with like way less sauce than Brian
Hmm.
Bertino or Johannes Roberts, for that matter.
Yes.
It kind of ruined any prospects. And now how there's been such a delay between the two. Do people even remember The Strangers Chapter One? If I'm being honest,
I
like
think I genuinely think that this trilogy was so cheap to make that regardless if it places in the top five opening weekend, it's already made its money back essentially. These are
yeah,
cheap movies. And I mean you can tell money's on the screen for for Strangers
yeah.
Chapter One.
Because I like what they were going with it. I just wish they didn't have to. I don't know. I wish Stranger Chapter One was good.
Hmm.
Because like, the prospect of it being one survivor being constantly pursued through three
Yeah,
trilogies, like over the course of like a week, and that's what it takes place over the course of a week or so.
exactly.
Um,
It
it's an
kind of
interesting
reminds me of
premise.
It reminds me of the original plan for David Gordon Green's Halloween trilogy, where it
Mhm.
was all kind of going to be over the course of one night. Of course, things changed, in my opinion, for the better. I am coming out here as a Halloween Ends defender.
That's fair. That's fair. And I don't hate Halloween Ends like a lot of people do.
Hmm.
I do think it would have been cool to have a whole trilogy set on one night, but I do know,
Yes.
COVID kind of, put a lot of burden on that plan, and
Yes.
they did the best with what they could. Halloween Ends, my quick take on it is
Hmm.
that it was all right. I wish it had more follow through on its weird ideas. Because
Hmm.
my biggest gripe with Halloween Ends was it had so many great, bold, giant ideas, but only halfway went through on each of them. So you have a bunch of half-baked good ideas rather than one great, bold idea. And that's just kind of my take on it, at least. But I don't hate it like a lot of people did.
Hmm. No, I can certainly see where you're coming from. I think just the Christine vibes in that movie, and to an extent, kind of the Lost Boys, even a little bit, with the Corey Cunningham character, was just so enticing and so fascinating. And I hate that we had to pivot back to a big showdown with Michael Myers at the end.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I think Halloween Ends took more risks than a lot of studio horror movies do, so I'll forever kind of love it for that. And
I
it was
agree.
also it was also kind of fun to be in the theater and see the audience start to turn more hostile towards the movie as things go on. Like they wanted Halloween Kills again, you know?
Hmm. Oh yeah, no, and I love Halloween Kills. In my opinion, is the best in that trilogy. I love
Oh, that
Halloween
that movie's
Kills.
great. That is the Michael Myers. That is the Michael Myers ultimate like kill compilation movie,
Oh yeah.
and I love that. I love it for that. I don't know. I have a big soft spot for a lot of that trilogy because I'm a big
Mhm.
Danny McBride fan, and I think that he has a good eye for character in his screenplays, and I also really do like Dave Gordon Green's direction. Um, but yeah, long story short, Strangers Chapter Two is probably not going to be like that.
Probably not. No.
No.
And the only other thing on the Lionsgate slate was The Long Walk, which the other King adaptation, right?
Yes.
And there
Yes.
there was some footage shown.
Yeah, so we got a full trailer. Let me pull up the cast list here real quick because
Mhm.
the performances that we saw in that footage were pretty incredible. So if you're unfamiliar with with The Long Walk. It is another Richard Bachman novel by Stephen King. That is kind of a little harsher than a lot of his other material. The storyline essentially follows another dystopian version of the United States where children are taken into this contest called the Long Walk. Children, like teenagers and whatnot, are taken into this contest called the Long Walk, where they have to continuously keep walking until only one person is left walking. So the second somebody stops, they're shot dead, or if they fall, they're shot dead. Um, so the film itself stars Mark Hamill is playing a dramatic role as the person kind of initiating this walk. And we also have Cooper Hoffman from Licorice Pizza, and David Johnson from Alien Romulus as well. Um, so from from what I saw in the trailer, it looks stellar. It looks very emotional. It looks bleak as all hell. And it has the right tone and the right vibe for a Stephen King production. It's
Mhm.
directed by Francis Lawrence, who is a director who I've recently become very fond of for his work not only on the Hunger Games sequels but also Constantine and I Am Legend. So I think that on a base level it looks great, but also I have heard, I can't say too much about this, but I do know people who have seen the film in full already, and they've said it's nothing short of spectacular. Um, so I would definitely keep an eager eye towards this one because I think it's going to be something really special when it releases in September.
Oh yeah. I mean, first off, I love that we're getting more Richard Bachman adaptations. I have my own
Mhm.
little Bachman book collection. So now I have to go back and reread that. I love that we're getting more Bachman stuff.
Mhm.
And I also love the prospect of Mark Hamill doing more Stephen King work with Life of Chuck coming out
Yes.
this summer and Long Walk coming out this September, you said? Or
Yes, September 12th.
wow, back to well, almost back to back. Mark Hamill.
Mhm.
Mark Hamill, Stephen King. And I feel like we're kind of entering a Stephen King renaissance of the sorts.
I
The
agree.
80s were a big era for Stephen King adaptations, and now, we had It in 2017, a big one. We also had Gerald's Game on
Yes.
Netflix, followed by Doctor Sleep, Mike Flanagan again. Oh my God, the
Mhm.
goat. And now we just had The Monkey this year.
Mhm.
And I just love how we're getting more Stephen King stuff. And based on your description and the cast and how you said some people have already seen it, I'm excited for this one.
Yes, I would definitely say that this one's going to be a much bigger deal come September than I think a lot of people are expecting.
Hmm. Man, September's got some competition though, no?
Hmm.
September's got some big competition. So moving on to the final big studio slate,
Yes,
which has a lot of.
I can help rapid fire this
Oh
one.
yeah, all right. Well, I mean, this is like there's so much good stuff here. Warner
Hmm.
Brothers came out and they dropped some stuff for what I have listed here. The Conjuring
Hmm.
Last Rites, the sort of finale to the Conjuring series,
Yes.
if I remember correctly. Final Destination Bloodlines, Weapons, which y'all got some footage there, and there was also a trailer released today, so that's kind of perfect.
Yes.
And then one I'm super excited about that no one is talking about, The Bride.
Oh yeah. So I'll kick things off right with The Bride because I want to talk about this one.
Let's get into
This
it.
movie looks insane. So Maggie Gyllenhaal is directing, and it stars Jessie Buckley as basically the Bride of Frankenstein.
Mhm.
But what the movie presupposes is, what if you turned Frankenstein's monster in The Bride of Frankenstein into a natural born killers, Bonnie and Clyde, unhinged, raunchy, gory, hyper stylized kind of film. When I say this film has edge to it, I mean like full hot topic, um, like F bombs being dropped left and right. There's gore. There's kind of kind of a gangster film element to it. It looks so wildly original, so much of what we need right now for reinterpreting these characters.
Mhm.
Out of all the CinemaCon films I saw footage for, this was by far my favorite, just because it feels like after you watch this footage, you just got sucker punched. You're like, what the hell? I was not expecting that at all.
Dude, okay, so based on everything you just said, I was already hyped for this. I was already hyped for any sort of Universal Monsters adaptations. I mean, we're getting Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein this year as well. So the fact that we're
Yes.
getting two Frankenstein adaptations, this is 2025, right? The Bride.
I think it's February of 2026, if I'm not mistaken.
Close enough. The fact that we're
Yeah.
getting two Frankenstein adaptations within the course of the next year or so is
Hmm.
pretty great. And based on what you said, it kind of calls back to, well, not really much of a callback. It came out, I believe, this year or late last year, James Gunn's Creature Commandos, which I would loved how
Yes,
he adapted Bride of Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster
definitely.
into the DC universe as he's kind of badass. I mean, Frankenstein is kind of more of a klutzy badass, but
Yeah.
as these badass kind of stealth ops bad guys. Um,
Hmm.
so like I said, The Bride, you comparing that to Natural Born Killers, Bonnie and Clyde, um, gangster stuff. I'm excited
Hmm.
for it. And I hope it has the same success as something like Sinners, where it's so,
Yes.
1940s gangster-esque, but with monsters and unapologetic vulgarity, sex, and violence.
Hmm.
And I hope it sees the same success because the premise sounds great, and I'm seated.
Sinners is a great comparable, I think, because that's another film where you see the trailer and you're like, what the hell? Now I got to
Mhm.
see this. The Bride kind of has that same compulsive feeling to it. Unfortunately, I have less to say about The Conjuring Last Rites because all we really got out of that was a logo reveal and just, a vague promise that it's going to be the best one yet.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm inclined to believe them. I think that The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It is a little bit underrated for what it was trying to do, and I think each of these films have taken the Warrens into a new exciting place.
Mhm.
So I'm I'm down for whatever they're
Right.
doing here. But I'm gonna need a little more information before I can start really turning up the hype meter.
And it really, that was the only thing I had put for Conjuring Last Rites was how I believe the studio president or
Hmm.
some figure of importance said it's the best of the franchise. Now, I don't really want to believe that until James Wan says it, but
Hmm.
I because I trust James Wan over all other word, especially as
Of
far as this
course.
franchise goes. Um, Now the Conjuring franchise, they've been a total cash cow for Warner
Yes.
Brothers. I'm sure they're sad to see it go. If this is really
Do
the finale, which I'm not really sure it will be.
I feel like this could be the finale of our, mainline Warren stories, but I think there's no way that Warner Brothers is letting this go in particular. I think we'll probably have a few new uh, ghosts and ghouls and
Mhm.
little possessed trinkets that will probably lend themselves to a few more spin-offs. I mean, shoot, there's even still the idea of doing a Crooked Man spin-off from the second Conjuring film on the table, which they still hasn't really been a lot of solid motion on. So I think this is maybe the end of the Warren story, but I don't
Mhm.
think this is the last we're going to see of the Conjuring, not by a long shot.
I think so as well. And like, as far as the Conjuring franchise, I've only seen the only two I've missed are
Hmm.
La Llorona and the Nun 2. Those are the
Hmm.
only those are the only ones in the franchise I haven't seen yet. And I would argue there's more good than bad in this franchise. The Nun, I feel like was kind of, if anything, a little bit too boring in some spots.
Yeah.
It was a little underwhelming in some spots, but still good cast, good. It looked good, and it was
Hmm.
fine. Annabelle Creation, I think is one of my favorite like of the spin-offs.
That one's
Um,
awesome.
it's so good. It's just creepy doll, haunted house, horror flick. I mean, it's fun. No need to overcomplicate it. No need to, it's just it's a great haunted house, haunted doll flick. Um,
Right.
and I do think we will down the line get more like from the world of the Conjuring type of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as that Crooked Man spinoff, I keep hearing about it every so often. I hear whispers about it. Like, I hear people say it's dead, and then it's not, and then oh, they're talking about it. When the concept never really made sense to me, to be honest, because
Hmm.
the Crooked Man was never real. That was just a
Yeah.
manifestation of Valak using the old man as like a puppet sort of thing.
Hmm.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it looked cool for like the 10 seconds we saw it in the movie. It looked cool. It was freaky. I like the stop motion effects, and if we did get a whole movie like that, that'd be great. I just don't see how narratively it would make sense. But I could trust James Wan and his team to make it make sense. But on paper, I never really understood why they were doing that.
I don't think they expected the Crooked Man's appearance in The Conjuring 2 to be as effective as it was. And I think they just kind of ended up in a situation where it's like, well, crap, now we gotta like
I may as well
now we
use
have
it.
to somehow reverse engineer a movie around this. But I say they should keep trying. I would like to see it personally. It's
Oh
a
yeah,
cool
no,
design.
no, same. The only other things really on the Warner Brothers slate were Final Destination Bloodlines, which like the marketing has been so spoiler. I've been staying away from all the trailers,
Yeah.
all the marketing. Um,
I mean, I
that
won't
first,
divulge too much about what I saw because they straight up just showed us a full kill. But it looks like what Final Destination fans want. This seems like a true Final Destination movie. I'm not worried about it being good or bad. It seems like it's very much in line with like Final Destination 3, Final Destination 5, what have you.
yeah, I mean, I'm excited for it. I just started watching the Final Destination franchise not long ago. Actually, I just started like watching it for the first time the other day,
Hmm.
and I'm excited for it. I'm excited for it. And really the only other thing on here was weapons.
Yes.
uh, which we got a new trailer for, and it looked good.
Hmm.
Based on what I've seen so far, I haven't watched the full trailer. I've seen some snippets, and I've heard a little bit about it. About like
Yes.
I mean, just again, I'm more Zach Krieger. I love how he keeps things close to the chest, and
Uh-huh.
Want
the
to take one more quick break before we jump into the final few movies James and I talk about by shouting out my Letterboxd account. I do have a Letterboxd. If you want to go check that out, I will be linking it here, and it's where you can read reviews that are too short to go on the Jacob V. Harper website. Speaking of the Jacob V. Harper website, you should go check out that website. It's where I post my more in-depth reviews and blogs. It's one of my goals this year to be more active on the website and post more on my blog alongside posting on other people's outlets. Um, so I am hoping to keep up with that more this year. I'll also, of course, be posting on my social media accounts when my work is hosted on someone else's outlet. Most recently, I've been doing a lot of work with 1428 Elm, so be sure to keep a lookout for those. And you can do all that once again by following my social medias. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And yeah, let's get back into it. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the episode. See ya.
All right, we are working down. Sorry about that break interruption. Zoom hates me today. Um, but we are working our way through the final slate. Warner Brothers, we talked about Conjuring Last Rites, and The Bride. We talked a little bit about Final Destination, but there really wasn't much to say that the movie hasn't said itself with its marketing.
Hmm.
Um, I'm so excited to see it. I'm excited for it. The very first trailer where it just showed the tattoo parlor kill,
Hmm.
that was enough for me. I was like, okay, that's cool. I'm seated.
It has crowd pleaser written all over it. I think the people hungered for a new Final Destination movie, and also it's also a nice opportunity to see Tony Todd on the screen for one of his last performances as well. So I'll definitely be seated, if nothing else, just to pay homage.
Oh yeah, no, it's good to see him again. I know there's a few other movies coming out that he features in, so it's
Hmm.
gone but never forgotten. Um,
The man stayed busy until his final days. That's for
abs
sure.
Absolutely he did. Absolutely he was. I mean, even in like small indie films,
Hmm.
he had such a presence. So R.I.P. to the GOAT, Tony Todd. Really.
R.I.P. to the goat.
Really the only other thing we talked about The Bride, which sounds badass. Natural Born Killers, Bonnie and Clyde, Monsters.
It's like
Um,
everything that we want.
my life is complete with this movie. The really only other thing on the Warner Brothers slate was Weapons, which again we talked earlier about Zach Krieger, how he's so good at keeping everything behind the curtain until it's
Hmm.
showtime. He's just a master at that, based on
Yes.
Barbarian, based on the marketing for this. And I also appreciate how he's kind of taken on sort of a producer role in a lot of stuff. I believe he was producer on, if I remember correctly, Late Night with the Devil, which is
Hmm.
one of my favorites from last year. Um, I'm excited to see where he goes with weapons.
Hmm.
What all do they show you guys at CinemaCon?
So let me preface by saying Barbarian is my favorite horror of the 2020s. I think it just hits every note. I think a good horror also knows that the line between comedy and horror is very thin. So jumping over it and weaving in and out of that line is very fun. Um, Now, Weapons looks like just straight up a nightmare in the best possible ways. So here is the general concept that was given to us through the footage we saw, which was very similar to the trailer that was just released today, but with a couple key differences. So we hear narration from a child talking about this community and how at 2:17 one morning every single child from one teacher's class, and the teacher is played by Julia Gardner. Every student from that class went downstairs, walked out of their house, and disappeared into the darkness. Now, this causes a massive issue in the community because everyone is wondering, particularly an angry mob led by Josh Brolin, like, why was it only your children that went? And
Mhm.
from there, we get a lot of interesting flashes of what's going on, but with no clear path down the rabbit hole, right? A lot of people's eyes rolling back and turning white, a lot of what looks like disfigured monsterish characters. But one little piece that they showed us at CinemaCon that I don't believe is in this trailer is it's just a couple frames, but you remember World War Z, right?
Mhm.
You remember those shots of the zombies just like piling out, like moving almost like a wave?
Mhm.
Imagine that, but with children coming out of a schoolhouse.
Okay, I
And
like that.
that image has been sitting with me ever since CinemaCon. Because he's keeping it so close to the chest, we don't know much beyond the original concept, but just the vibes, the imagery they've showed, and of course, the industry talk around this. Like, we have to discuss the fact that Jordan Peele actually is alleged to have fired his manager because Monkey Paw could not win the bidding rights to the script because it was that impressive and it's that much of a hot ticket.
Wow.
And again, just the general talk around the horror community too is that Weapons is going to be something truly earth shaking in regards to horror, and that's the vibe I got from that trailer.
Wow. First off, I hadn't heard about that Jordan Peele
Hmm.
thing. That's probably the best marketing ever for this movie. That
Yeah.
Jordan Peele was so bad he couldn't get the script, he fired his manager. That's like, I think that says more than any film festival accolade,
Yes.
or Rotten Tomatoes score, really. Um, Wow. Yeah. So first off, that I haven't seen the trailer yet. I'm probably gonna watch it
Hmm.
later today because I'm gonna break my trailer rule. I broke it for Finance at Freddy's, and I might have to just break it for this because even like I compared Weapons based on how it's marketing and its sort of ambiguity to last year's Long Legs. I still watched the
Hmm.
Long Legs trailer, and I still had no idea what I was walking into when I walked into that theater. Um,
Exactly. There's a whole component to long
mhm.
legs that is entirely a very supernatural component to long legs that is very absent from all the marketing. And from what Zach Krieger has told us, even with the footage we saw at CinemaCon, that was went a little bit further than just a tiny bit further than the trailer. He still said this is just the tip of the iceberg. Like, this movie is, he has pitched it as one that constantly reinvents itself, constantly reinvents its scope and its scale and its tone. So I can't even imagine where this goes.
Yeah.
And that is a very exciting place to be.
Oh yeah. And I mean, like uh, Zach Krieger's movies, at least how they are now, they are icebergs.
Hmm.
Barbarian is an iceberg. It is a rabbit. It's a
Yes.
literal rabbit hole. You start in one place, you end up in a totally different realm than when the movie first started.
Yes.
And you have no idea how you got there or where we're going after. And I'm so excited to see how weapons builds upon that sort of a trend we've seen with Zach Krieger.
And
Uh,
I hope, especially since Sinners was such a big success, that Warner Brothers is learning the lesson of people want original films that kind of draw you in by that mystery. And I mean, even a studio as big as Warner Brothers, buying this project and giving it its budget, shows a lot of confidence.
mhm.
Um, and I also selfishly hope that this comes out before cameras start rolling on Resident Evil, so that Sony will be like, if the film is as great as we're being led to believe, which I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be. I hope that Sony sees weapons and everything going on with it and says, okay, we're gonna do something different. Carte blanche. Make your Resident Evil movie however you want.
Yeah, hands off.
Mm-hmm.
To take him off the leash, let him do what he needs to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which more studios should just do that. I always compare like Marvel Studios. I think they're getting a
Yes,
little bit better, but when you hire Sam Raimi to do a Doctor Strange movie, don't tie one of his hands behind his back. Don't put him on a
exactly.
leash. Let him go full Raimi on Doctor Strange, and it'll be great.
I mean,
Um,
even with his hand tied behind his back, Multiverse of Madness is still like my favorite of those
it's
movies.
sti- it's still it's still good. It's but
Mhm.
it could have been better.
Yes.
You could have just let Sam Raimi cook unattended. Um, yeah, I do hope that Warner Brothers learns a lesson between Sinners and Weapons. Because I did hear David Zaslav had said something about how he Warner Brothers was director-driven films.
Hmm.
I never really saw too much evidence of that besides like maybe Dune and
Furiosa,
yeah,
that sort of
yeah.
stuff.
Maybe they didn't give it the proper marketing. They didn't, but Dune got
Hmm.
got good marketing, but I never fully bought into they were the director friendly studio.
Hmm.
Um, but then with Sinners doing as well as it does, I hope they continue being director friendly because Zaslav had said something like they're shifting more towards IP driven movies rather than director driven movies. But director driven movies make you money if you let the director direct, if you let him work.
Yes.
If you let Ryan Coogler make his 1940s vampires Western mob film, uh,
Musical.
yeah, musical. If you let him do that, you get 70 millimeter IMAX tickets through the roof. If,
Yes.
if you let Zach Krieger be an ambiguous, mysterious showman, you get
Hmm.
you get what we're getting with weapons.
I
Um,
think if we know anything about Zaslav, it's that money talks, and I really, really hope, because at the end of the day, out of all of CinemaCon, Warner Brothers brought the two most exciting original films, which are The Bride and Weapons.
mhm.
And I think, just see what happens. Let them push these films hard, and if audiences bite, then now we have a new precedent for big studio original horror. So I don't know. I think Weapons is almost a perfect thing to conclude the CinemaCon conversation on, because it's so representative of where we could be going for horror in the future. And
Absolutely.
I mean, in particular, just running through all these films, even it's we're in a very healthy state for studio horror. And I cannot wait to see what this year brings.
Oh yeah, and like we said at the top of the hour, 2025 has already been an amazing year for horror.
Hmm.
Really hasn't been too many false notes from where I stand for
Hmm.
like the theatrically released studio horror. Granted, there's some that I missed. I haven't seen Woman in the Yard yet. Um,
I
I,
haven't either.
I did see Drop. I saw Drop in theaters. Went to an early screening of it, and I loved it. I loved Drop, and
Hmm.
I feel like kind of the marketing. kind of I feel like that there could have been better marketing for it because one
Hmm.
thing about Drop that was kind of a turnoff for me was the emphasis on the airdrops and the memes.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, like a meme airdrop killer. That's kind of lame. But then you sit down and watch the movie, the airdrop aspect is like one third of an unraveling plot. So I'd highly recommend Drop. I feel like the marketing kind of misfired with it, but it's a great film, and there's so many other great studio horror films. We had The Monkey, we had Companion,
Hmm.
Sinners. We're eating good this year, and like I said,
Yes.
CinemaCon is going to it shows us that we're going to continue to eat very good because we also have a lot of smaller indie stuff that didn't get the CinemaCon love and showmanship, which I'm excited for. But studio
Hmm.
horror, like you said, is in a great place right now, especially between Universal and Warner Brothers. Because they,
Yes.
in my opinion, have the strongest slates. Universal, him, Megan 2.0, FNAF 2, Black
Hmm.
Phone 2, Soulmate. And one thing I missed when we were talking about Universal was they
Yes.
announced a sixth Insidious film.
They
Uh,
did. They did. So I am a big ride or die for the Insidious franchise. It's one
mhm.
of my absolute favorites. I think the lore is just so creative there. However, I think Insidious the Red Door was a bit of a disappointment for me. It kind of hit a lot of just very flat kind of trauma horror notes that I don't think really were representational of the franchise. So I was a bit bummed when that was the note we had to end on for that franchise. But I'm glad that they're keeping it running because there's the further literally opens up endless possibilities for what you
Mhm.
could do in the world of Insidious. Um, Personally, I would like James Wan to come back to it, but or even Lee Winnell to come back and direct another one, but I just don't know if I see that right now. So that's another wait and see. What's the concept going to be? But anything Insidious, I'm going to be there no matter what.
I just had this thought. We were talking earlier about versus movies.
Hmm.
I think for the next Insidious film, it should be The Grabber versus some Insidious thing. Like
Oh wow,
the the
that would
the
be
the the,
incredible.
the Grabber versus Lin Shaye's character or something,
Hmm.
both under that studio. So let's make it happen, Blumhouse. Let's make that happen, please. Like
The further would be such a fun way to connect all these little ghouls we have running around in the Blumhouse world.
it would be
And
fantastic.
would it be jumping the shark to have a big Blumhouse battle royale? Maybe, but I'd love to see it.
Megan versus Soulmate versus Freddy Fazbear versus the Grabber. Come
Hmm.
on. Versus
Super,
Lipstick Demon.
just make it Super Smash Brothers, but for Blumhouse characters, and I'm there.
See, that's a game. They recently started their video game branch. There you
Hmm.
go. We should just work for Blumhouse.
We should.
Jason, please hire James and I. We will bring you the best.
Jason, please, and also use your sway to get Dark Tower made. Thank you.
Please. Man, I love Blumhouse. But yeah, I think Warner Brothers and Universal had the strongest slate at
Hmm.
CinemaCon. Definitely have the things I'm most excited for. I mean, between Finds of Phrase 2, Black Phone 2, Weapons, and The Bride. I mean,
Hmm.
I'm sat for all those. And of course, everything in between. Long Walk is exciting. Running Man, Edgar Wright, more Stephen King. I'm okay with. Uh,
We're all gonna see the Running Man. At the end of the
yeah,
day, we're all gonna see it.
we're all gonna see it. Resident Evil, which I know Hush Hush, probably not gonna be
Hmm.
till 2026, maybe 2027. I don't know. I'm not sure if they've even really started shooting, if they're in
Hmm.
pre-production. Maybe they've cast them, they haven't announced the cast yet. Maybe they haven't even started casting. I don't know where they're at on that production timeline. So we could be looking at maybe 2027 for Resident Evil.
Yeah,
Um,
I hope it's 2027. I hope they take their time to cook on it and, kind of let Zach finish up Weapons and have that whole press tour and all that.
oh man, the weapons press tour is gonna be awesome.
Oh, it's gonna be incredible.
Hope it's just as ambiguous as the marketing. Every question is answered with
Hmm.
another question. Um, but yeah, thank you so much again for coming on the show, uh,
Absolutely.
giving me your CinemaCon experience.
It's
Uh,
my pleasure. I love talking terror. Always happy to drop by.
awesome. Well, thank you so much. We got to have you back again soon, definitely.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining. Have a good one.
For sure. You as well.
But and I'm gonna.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of Talking Terror. I had an absolute blast chatting with James Poole about CinemaCon and all the great horror films we have coming up this year. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with a fellow horror fan. If you're tuning in via YouTube, be sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel. If you're tuning in via Apple Podcasts or Spotify, be sure to follow up with us on there by following and leaving a solid rating. I really appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts on the upcoming slate of horror films in the comments section. I always love talking some terror with horror fans, so if you have any thoughts on what you saw or heard here, let me know. And if you have any suggestions for guests for an upcoming episode, leave that in the comments as well. I'm always happy to chat with more folks in the horror industry. Be sure to use that discount code if you haven't already for 20% off an entire one-time subscription to Fangoria. If you're already subscribed, then be sure to get yourself something nice from the Fangoria merch shop. Get yourself some Fangoria swag. Once again, that discount code is Jacob the Harper, JCOBTHEHERPER. That's Jacob the Harper, JCOBTHEHERPER. Also, leave a link in the description for all those interested in following up with that. It helps me out a lot here on the podcast, and of course, it helps you get some dope Fangoria in your life, which you need. You need Fangoria in your life. I can't stress it enough. If you haven't already, be sure to use that discount code for 20% off an entire order subscription from Fangoria. And if you already subscribed to Fangoria, be sure to get yourself something nice from the Fangoria merchandise shop. That way, it helps out me over here on the podcast, and it helps you out by giving you some Fangoria in your life. Once again, that discount code is Jacob V. Harper. That's JACOBTHEHERPER, Jacob V. Harper. Also, be sure to follow my social media to stay up to date on everything I'm up to. All those will be in the description below with my link tree. But I'll keep it quick here and shout out my Twitter and Instagram, as those are the ones I'm the most active on. My Twitter is at Jacob at the Movie, and my Instagram is Jacob V. Harper, and I hope to see some of you all over there. I'll also be linking James' social medias in the description below so you can check out more of his work as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of Talking Terror. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.